Good morning, and welcome to my video critically reflecting upon the thematic area of Indigenous knowledges. This unit has provided me with a wealth of knowledge and understanding about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander education, the implications and challenges we face, and what we can achieve as future teachers trying to accommodate all students. Understanding and evaluating the six thematic areas is vital as a pre-service teacher, and I have sought to be better informed about Indigenous knowledges to ensure I can foster understanding and reconciliation in my classroom in the near future. I have come to understand the importance of these areas far more over the duration of this course, as my eyes have been opened to new information and ways it can benefit all students, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous. This video will seek to critically analyse and reflect upon Indigenous knowledges, how it is relevant to me in my future role as a teacher, and what strategies I can effectively use to enhance student engagement, including Aboriginal students, families, and communities. So, now to critically analyse and reflect upon Indigenous knowledges. Indigenous knowledge, according to Indigenous science education, has become the accepted term to include the beliefs and understandings of non-Western people acquired through long-term association with a place. It is knowledge based on the social, physical, and spiritual understandings which have informed the people's survival and contributed to their sense of being in the world. Sophisticated knowledge of the natural world is not confined to science. Human societies all across the globe have developed rich sets of experiences and explanations relating to the environment they live in. These other knowledge systems are today often referred to as traditional ecological knowledge, Indigenous or local knowledge. Indigenous knowledge is the local knowledge that is unique to a culture or society. This knowledge is passed from generation to generation, usually by word of mouth and cultural rituals, and has been the basis for agriculture, food, preparation, healthcare, education, conservation, and the wide range of other activities that sustain societies in many parts of the world. Indigenous people have a broad knowledge of how to live sustainably. However, formal education systems have disrupted the practical everyday life aspects of Indigenous knowledge and ways of learning, replacing them with abstract knowledge and academic ways of learning. Today, there is a grave risk that much Indigenous knowledge is being lost, and along with it, the valuable knowledge about the living naturally and sustainably. Indeed, what we call knowledge and validate as knowledge also needs to be examined, particularly when it is contemporary Western knowledge conveyed in English, which is continually privileged, regarded as the normative, and presumed universal. Because Indigenous knowledge has often been referred to as traditional knowledge, some people view it as unchanging knowledge based only in the past. Instead, it is an adaptable, dynamic system based on skill, abilities, and problem-solving techniques that change over time depending on the environmental conditions. The body of Indigenous knowledge can no more be summed up than the body of knowledge of any other society. It is vast and based on context, often connected to specific geographical areas. So how is this relevant to me as a future teacher? Inclusion of non-appropriated Indigenous knowledge in schools serves multiple purposes. It honours the fact that Indigenous peoples do have a robust and deep knowledge base that has been previously either ignored or denigrated. It makes room in our schools for Aboriginal learners to see elements of who they are reflected around them, which is an often necessary condition for the success of almost all learners, and it helps non-Indigenous learners develop understanding to bridge some of the divide between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Australia. Integrating the traditional Indigenous perspectives of teaching and learning can also be immensely valuable in creating a more responsive education system for all students. The significance of Indigenous knowledges to me as a future teacher is vital. By introducing Indigenous perspectives into my teaching, students will develop an increased respect and understanding of other cultures, an ability to think more broadly when exploring social and environmental problems, an awareness of the relationship between people and their environment, and an understanding of Australia's Indigenous history. Understanding these aspects and respecting them builds reconciliation and provides avenues for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people to connect on a deeper level. The significance of Indigenous knowledges to me as a future teacher is vital. By introducing Indigenous perspectives into my teaching, students will develop an increased respect and understanding of other cultures, an ability to think more broadly when exploring social and environmental problems, an awareness of the relationship between people and their environment, and an understanding of Australia's Indigenous history. Understanding these aspects and respecting them builds reconciliation and provides avenues for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people to connect on a deeper level. In 2010 and 2013, QUT, in partnership with Griffith University, conducted a research project investigating how to better support future curriculum leaders in embedding Indigenous knowledges on a teaching practicum. The researchers spoke to pre-service teachers and their supervising school teachers about their pedagogical relationships, for example, negotiating expectations and role modelling, and their experiences developing expertise in Indigenous knowledges and perspectives and embedding them in their teaching practice. This included analysing several case studies demonstrating pre-service teachers' agency and curriculum decision-making with the intent of embedding Indigenous knowledges within what was considered a restricted curriculum. The case studies are intended to demonstrate how possessing genuine, innate and learned Indigenous knowledges can inform innovative curricula and pedagogical decision-making and assessment design. Spaces and opportunities can be created for pre-service teachers to develop their expertise in embedding Indigenous knowledges and perspectives while on teaching placements, given the right conditions. These conditions include the supervising teacher's capacity to recognise Indigenous knowledges and their willingness to negotiate spaces within the curriculum for embedding Indigenous knowledges. These case studies tell me that the relevance and importance of Indigenous knowledges is highly regarded in the Australian curriculum. Through reading these case studies, I have a deeper desire to fulfil my responsibilities as a teacher in embedding these knowledges into my classroom. So what are some strategies I can identify to enhance my effectiveness in the classroom, particularly for engaging and including Aboriginal students, families and communities? Today, Indigenous perspectives are evident in many education curriculums across Australia, including science. However, the willingness for educators to see themselves as learners and seek to develop their own understanding first is lacking. This creates classrooms and schools that do not value this knowledge, and in turn, those values are passed on to their students themselves. Cara Shipp explains in a journal article she wrote discussing Indigenous perspectives in the classroom that she encourages teachers to get rid of the word tokenism. She believes the word allows many thousands of teachers to continue to teach the Anglo-Australian content which they are most comfortable and continue to exclude the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives as they are too scared to do it in a tokenistic way. So they just don't do it. Is the painted boomerang tokenism? Well, that depends. Did the students engage with the Aboriginal people while painting the boomerang? Did they learn about the boomerang, its uses, and the many different kinds of boomerangs traditionally used? In short, was the learning experience a rich one that advanced the students' intercultural knowledge and understanding in some way? If so, then it is not tokenism. As with many aspects of the curriculum, teaching Indigenous perspectives is not so much about what you teach as about the how and the when you teach. Much can be done to foster further understanding, reconciliation, and a general knowledge of how Indigenous Australians use knowledge for an array of reasons. Aboriginal people are the best equipped and most appropriate people to teach Indigenous knowledge. Wherever possible, teachers should seek to involve local Aboriginal communities in education programs that involve Indigenous perspectives. Starting local is important too. When deciding upon the content that will be incorporated in the school or classroom, begin with the territory the school is situated on, including an acknowledgement of the original custodians of the land which the school is located is an effective tool to build understanding also. Building a knowledge base for non-Indigenous students is vital, and my classroom will ensure it has a large collection of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander picture books, children books, and non-fiction books, depending on the year level. The resources should reflect the realities and culture of the Indigenous students. This can create an environment that is safe for Indigenous students to feel comfortable and proud to share information about their culture and history of their families and communities. Future teacher, I understand the divide between Indigenous and non-Indigenous. I have seen it at the schools I have completed my placement at, and I have seen it at the school I work at, and I have learned a lot more about this throughout this unit of work. For me, I feel extending students' knowledge in relation to Indigenous knowledge is a necessary step to move closer to understanding and reconciliation. I myself found it fascinating to learn the traditional skills, resources, and knowledge Indigenous communities use and share with each other, and I know if it is done appropriately and effectively, students will love learning about it too. What I hope to achieve is a level of knowledge and competency so I can achieve this goal for my classroom and students I will have someday. Thank you for listening.